Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you lost, even though nobody raised their voice? You agreed to something you didn't want. You accepted a lower price. You revealed too much. You said yes when every instinct inside you was screaming no. By the time you realized what had happened, the negotiation was already over. Here's the truth most people never understand. Negotiation doesn't begin when two people sit across from each other. It begins long before the first handshake, before the first word, before the first offer. The person who controls everything that happens before the negotiation usually controls everything that happens after it. Machiavelli understood this better than almost anyone in history. Kings believed they won wars because of strength. Machiavelli knew they won because they had already shaped the battlefield before the first sword was drawn. Modern negotiation works exactly the same way. Most people think negotiation is about speaking well. It isn't. It's about positioning yourself so well that the other person unknowingly walks into the outcome you already planned. The strongest negotiators don't fight harder. They make fighting unnecessary. By the time the conversation starts, the decision has already been made. In this video, you'll discover Machiavelli's 9 brutal laws of negotiation that silently control business deals, salaries, relationships, politics, and everyday conversations. These aren't polite communication tips. These are psychological strategies that powerful people use every single day. Some of them will make you uncomfortable. Others will completely change the way you speak to people forever. Because once you understand these laws, you'll begin seeing negotiations happening everywhere, and you'll realize the people you thought were simply charismatic were actually controlling the deal from the very beginning. Stay until the end, because the final law is the most dangerous. It's the one that makes people believe every decision was entirely their own, even when it wasn't. Once you learn it, you'll never be manipulated the same way again. Law number 1. Win before you arrive. The greatest mistake amateurs make is believing preparation means collecting facts. Preparation isn't information. Preparation is influence. Long before meeting someone, powerful negotiators ask one question: what will this person already believe before they see me? Because first impressions are rarely created in the first meeting. They're created beforehand. If someone hears you're desperate, you've already lost. If someone hears you're wealthy, the negotiation changes. If someone hears everyone wants to work with you, scarcity begins working for you before you even enter the room. Machiavelli believed reputation travels faster than armies. Once reputation arrives, people negotiate with your image, not with you. Notice how luxury brands never beg customers. Exclusive clubs never chase members. Powerful companies rarely explain their value. Their reputation negotiates on their behalf. Humans don't evaluate objectively. We assume what everyone else believes must be true. This is called social proof, and it silently controls expectations. Imagine 2 identical job candidates. One arrives with no reputation. The other arrives after several respected people have praised them. Who has the advantage? Neither has spoken. Neither has demonstrated skill. Yet one negotiation is already tilted. Why? Because perception came first. Power doesn't start inside the room. It starts inside people's minds. The smartest negotiators spend more time controlling expectations than preparing arguments. Because arguments can be challenged, expectations become reality. Machiavelli would tell you, never enter a negotiation empty-handed. Arrive carrying a reputation that negotiates before you ever speak. Because people rarely fight what they already believe. Law number 2. The first person who needs the deal has already lost. Desperation leaks. No matter how carefully you hide it, people feel it. And the moment they sense you need something more than they do, your leverage begins disappearing. Need creates weakness. Choice creates power. This is why wealthy investors walk away from opportunities. This is why elite negotiators remain calm even during high-stakes discussions. Because they're negotiating from abundance, not survival. Machiavelli warned rulers never to become dependent on a single ally. Dependence creates obedience. The same law governs every negotiation today. If you only have one job offer, one customer, one relationship, one opportunity, the other side unconsciously gains control. Suddenly every silence feels threatening. Every delay feels painful. Every demand seems reasonable. You start compromising, not because the offer improved, but because your fear increased. Power belongs to the person who can genuinely walk away, not the person pretending they can. That's why experienced negotiators create alternatives before negotiating. Multiple clients, multiple buyers, multiple options. They aren't collecting opportunities, they're collecting freedom. Freedom changes body language, tone of voice, patience, confidence, and people respond to confidence instinctively. Never negotiate from hunger. Hungry people don't make decisions, they make sacrifices. Power begins the moment your happiness no longer depends on one answer, and the other person can feel that without you saying a single word. Law number 3. Control the frame, and you control reality. Every negotiation happens inside an invisible frame. Most people never notice it, yet everything depends on it. Imagine someone says, "This shouldn't take long." Immediately, the conversation becomes rushed. Imagine they say, "This is probably too expensive for you." Now you're defending your financial status instead of discussing value. Imagine they say, "We've never done this for anyone." Now you're negotiating exceptions instead of possibilities. Frames determine what people believe they're discussing. The strongest negotiator doesn't argue inside someone else's frame, they replace it. If someone says, "This price is expensive," don't defend the price, change the frame. The real question isn't cost. It's what this decision saves you over the next 5 years. Now the discussion changes. Notice what happened. The facts didn't change, reality didn't change, only the frame changed. And suddenly, the negotiation moved in your direction. Machiavelli understood that whoever defines reality governs behavior. Kings ruled not because they were always stronger, but because they controlled the story people believed. Stories shape decisions more than facts ever will. That's why successful negotiators rarely answer questions directly. They redirect attention toward the question that benefits them most, because whoever chooses the battlefield usually wins the war. Law number 4. Never reveal your bottom line first. The moment you expose the minimum you'll accept, the negotiation stops being about value and becomes about extracting every advantage from you. Silence is a weapon. Most people fear it, so they rush to fill it with explanations, discounts, or unnecessary compromises. Machiavelli understood that information is power. The person who knows more always has the advantage over the person who reveals more. Ask questions before giving answers. Let the other person expose their expectations, limits, and priorities first. Every word they volunteer is another piece of the battlefield you now understand. The less they know about your limits, the more room you have to shape the outcome. Law number 5. Make them feel the decision was theirs. People resist being controlled, but they rarely resist their own conclusions. This is why master negotiators don't force agreement. They guide people toward discovering the answer themselves. Instead of saying, "You should choose this," ask questions that naturally lead them there. When people believe an idea came from their own mind, they defend it with far greater conviction than if it had been forced upon them. The greatest victory is not convincing someone, it's making them convince themselves. Law number 6. Never fear walking away. Nothing destroys your leverage faster than the fear of losing the deal. The strongest position in any negotiation is the ability to leave without resentment or panic. Walking away isn't a bluff. It's proof that your self-respect is worth more than a bad agreement. Ironically, the moment people realize you're willing to leave, they often become far more willing to negotiate. Confidence attracts concessions. Desperation invites exploitation. Key law number 7. Control your emotions before you control others. Anger clouds judgment. Excitement causes overconfidence. Fear creates surrender. Every emotional reaction gives your opponent valuable information. Machiavelli believed that the calmest mind sees opportunities invisible to everyone else. Remain composed even when provoked. Silence often intimidates more than shouting ever could. The negotiator who stays emotionally disciplined usually forces everyone else to react, and the one reacting is rarely the one in control. Law number 8. Leave them wanting the relationship, not just the deal. A single victory means little if it destroys future opportunities. The most powerful negotiators think beyond today's agreement. They build trust without becoming predictable. They remain respected without becoming dependent. People should leave the table believing they gained value while also wanting to work with you again. Influence compounds over time. One successful negotiation should become the foundation for the next. Law number 9. The real negotiation begins before anyone speaks. Everything you've learned leads back to one truth. Negotiation is never about words alone. It is about perception, preparation, patience, positioning. The conversation is merely the final act of a game that began long before the first handshake. Those who master preparation rarely need persuasion. Those who master perception rarely need pressure. And those who master themselves are almost impossible to manipulate. Machiavelli knew that power does not belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to the person who quietly shapes the room before anyone else realizes the game has already begun. The greatest negotiators don't simply win arguments. They control the conditions that make victory inevitable. And once you understand these 9 brutal laws, you'll stop entering negotiations hoping for the best. You'll enter them already knowing exactly how the game is meant to end.